Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be with you again in Indonesia, if only virtually this time, and to share this distinguished platform with my friend and colleague, Professor Terry de Lacy. We were together in Indonesia a few years ago when we were working on a tourism strategy for Bali, and I well remember what an incredible tourism destination you are. I may be sounding a little melodramatic if I say that this is a vital time in looking at the future of travel and tourism. And I want to talk today about climate-friendly travel and what we in Sunex Malta call a dash to zero. Why a dash to zero? We are fully aware that the concept of net carbon neutral 2050 is what the international community is currently targeting for COP26 in Glasgow as our societal goal. And that we have globally a well-orchestrated Race to Zero campaign and many noble yet unfulfilled tourism and climate declarations. From Jerba in 2003 to Davos in 2007 to Glasgow now in 2021. I have to say, I sincerely believe it is unlikely that this will be enough to reach the Paris goal of 1.5 degrees. The latest report of the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, says we are already close to 1.2 degrees of the Paris target, and we're heading to more than 3 degrees by 2050. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called this, and I quote, a code red for humanity, unquote. The fact is, this is not only about 2050 ambitions, it's about now. Today's climate reality is dramatically starker than it was at Paris in 2015, some 5 short years ago. This year will be the hottest ever in modern history. Crazy flooding in China, in the United States, and in Europe. Heat waves and uncontrollable forest fires in Canada, the USA, Australia, Brazil, and even in Siberia, where the permafrost is actually melting. Dramatic hurricanes in the Caribbean, devastating whole islands, drought in Africa, rapid melting of polar ice caps, with the threat of even more flood devastation. Yes, we need clean energy and technology breakthroughs for 2050. For electric cars, for high-speed trains, for sustainably fueled aircraft, for eco-buildings, biofood, and smart cities. And we need a much faster transformation timescale if we're to have a viable long-term future. what has been 2050 historically will, in my view, become 2030 quite soon. We need urgent climate action today to respond to the seriously worsening weather extremes. New infrastructure and systems for protection from floods, from fires, from droughts, from famine, and from the climate refugees who are facing destruction, despair, and death. And we need a new global compact with nature to conserve so many of our threatened species. This will be especially important for island and developing states who have the most exposure to climate threats and who are the most vulnerable. Nowhere will this be more crucial than in Africa, where the market of 1 billion young people will come into its own in the next decade. And here in Asia, with close to 750 million. Today's youth are the key to a better future. They will be tomorrow's markets, tomorrow's researchers, tomorrow's leaders. And as Greta Thunberg recently said, quote, "We are the ones who will have to pick up the mess you adults have made today," unquote. In Senex Malta, a small EU NGO supported by the government of Malta and inspired by the late Maurice Strong, pioneer sustainability and climate activist half a century ago. We are taking the high ground in support of science and focused on this next generation. We're promoting climate-friendly travel, low carbon, SDG-linked, and Paris 1.5, with a transformation and resilience support system, which is tied to the UN's 2030 and 2050 green and clean roadmap for humanity. But we believe we have to go much further, much faster. We need net zero carbon in 2030, not in 2050. And we need zero greenhouse gases by 2050, if we are to respond to the Code Red urgency. We call this vision our dash to zero. D for declare, A for act, S for support, and H for hope. Because without hope, there can be no future. We've established concrete programs to help company and community change today while building together our hope for tomorrow. First, a UN-linked registry of ambition for climate-friendly travel stakeholders. Not just to make declarations, but to identify their sustainability and climate action plans, to put timescales and metrics in place, and to show transparently to other stakeholders and to consumers particularly that they're putting their action where their words are. Secondly, we're developing a fast-growing support network of SDG 17 partners, companies who provide services which will help travel and tourism communities and companies achieve their goals. Third, we're issuing a monthly bulletin called Exist to share good practice data and show who are the leaders in this field. And fourth, and most importantly for this community, we've introduced a diploma and immersion course for strong climate champions, for young people who will be a resource to stimulate change. We're aiming to put in place 100,000 globally by 2030 to act as a major force for helping the travel and tourism sector achieve a viable future. If this resonates with you, please join us, work with us, and help start the race to zero with a dash. Thank you very much for your attention.